everyone. So I'm Kelia, and I thought I would do another book review for you guys today. It's actually more like a double book review, I guess. They're both by Rainbow Rowell, and I'd kind of been in a reading slump, and I finally found some books that I thought I might like, and so I picked them up, and, well, now we're here. So the first book I read is called Attachments. Now, I've heard a lot about Rainbow Rowell in the past, and everyone seems to love her. They think she's a really funny author, really quirky and interesting. And so when I found some of her books, I was like, well, why not? Let me give her a try and see what I think. So I read this first one, and I really loved it. It was very quirky and just kind of funny. I like that it goes back and forth between one character's kind of his point of view, and then it also does this little, like, email thing, so you can see, you know, who started the original email, who it's going to, and then it's just a list of all their email conversations. So I like that it kind of goes back and forth. It's not, oh, here's a bunch of dialogue, and then, you know, whatever. Or, oh, hey, just read everything through email. So I like that it kind of had both elements to it. I thought it made it really interesting. It made it fun to read because you're kind of looking at the email portion of it from the outside, so you don't really know everything that's going on, but you get a little bit of information. So that was really cool. Something else I really liked about this was kind of the internal conflict that the main character, Lincoln, kind of goes through. He's an IT guy, and basically his whole job is to read through people's emails. Who knew that was even, like, an actual job? Apparently it is. He works at the Courier, which is the newspaper, and Beth and Jennifer are two other people who work at the Courier. And they're the two who write emails back and forth to each other, and they're clearly using the work email for personal reasons, which they're not supposed to do. It's actually Lincoln's job to send them an email like, hey, you better stop. This isn't what you're supposed to actually be doing with this email. You're only supposed to use it for work-related things. So it's kind of interesting because he doesn't ever tell them, like, oh, hey, you guys need to stop. You're not supposed to do this. He can't bring himself to do that. He thinks that Jennifer and Beth are just funny, and I don't want to say that he likes reading their emails, but he kind of likes reading their emails. He thinks that they're interesting, and he kind of just likes seeing what's going on with them. They're just funny, and they're not really doing any harm. They're not being creepy or whatever with it. So he doesn't really see a problem with it, and he kind of admits to himself later on in the story that, alright, I need to just stop, because clearly I'm not going to give them a warning message or an email saying, hey, you guys better stop this. Oh well. So you kind of follow all three of their stories, and you learn about Beth and Jennifer and their lives via email, and then you see them talking about Lincoln. But at first you don't know that it's Lincoln, and then once you realize it's Lincoln, you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. So Beth and Jennifer just kind of gossip to each other about their lives, about, you know, their family. Well, what is it? Beth? Yeah. Jennifer tells Beth everything about her husband and everything that's going on with that, and then Beth just tells Jennifer everything about her boyfriend and all sorts of things. So it's really kind of cool to see their friendship through this email, because you don't really just hear them, you don't hear them talking on a regular day-to-day basis. You don't see what they do outside of just their emails until the very end of the book, which I really liked. I thought that brought a really cool aspect, because you don't really get all these descriptions of them. It's just boom, boom, boom. This is happening, then this is happening, now this is happening, and that's it. So I thought that was kind of interesting, the way that Rainbow Rowell wrote that. If you're looking for something really kind of quirky, and it's not like a super big love story, I mean, there are elements of a love story in it, but it's not just like, oh, here's another boy-girl love story, whatever, let's just go with a generic idea. It's not that. It's very quirky, very funny. It's a quick read. I think it took me like maybe a day and a half to read it, and that was while I was out of town visiting some family, so it doesn't take very long to read. It is 321 pages. I really love the ending. I thought the ending was super adorable. I thought it ended at the perfect spot. Sometimes I read the ending of a book and I'm just like, okay, what next? Like, why would you end there? That's terrible. But I thought that this one ended really well. I don't know, it was just a really cute ending. It was really sweet. And you really kind of connect with these characters, I think. They go through, typical things that you're kind of experiencing, I guess. Lincoln, he's gone back and forth to college, and he's living at his mom's house again. He's like, I don't want to live here. Like, why am I living at my parents' house again? And then Beth and Jennifer go through their own trials. They're just having problems in their relationships, and they know why, but I guess they don't really want to admit it. And I think sometimes we know that there's a problem, and we don't want to admit it. So I like that it's very real. You can really relate to these characters, even though they're a little bit older than your average, like, say maybe 16 to like early 20s span. They're a little bit later on, I guess like late 20s-ish. But they're still really relatable, and I think that's what I really loved about this one. So go read it. Attachments by Rainbow Rowell if you're looking for a kind of office techie clerk book. I don't really know how else to explain it, but it's really good, so you guys should definitely check it out. And then the second book I read is also by Rainbow Rowell. It is called Landline. This one is just a tiny bit shorter than Attachments. It has 308 pages. So it's really not that much shorter, but it's really good. It's also another really quick read. I think I read this one in probably about the same time as the other one, probably about a day and a half. So I love this. I thought it was so great. It's really funny. It takes an interesting twist on like time travel. Basically, you have Georgie McCool, and yes, her name is McCool, M-C-C-O-O-L, McCool. What kind of name is that? Basically, her marriage is kind of falling apart without really falling apart. It's kind of a mess, and she doesn't really know what to do. Like, she knows what she would potentially want to do, but there's really nothing that she actually can do about fixing her marriage, which causes a lot of problems, obviously. So her husband takes the children. They have 2 girls, 2 daughters, and he takes them to Omaha for Christmas. They had bought their plane tickets, and all of a sudden Georgie's like, well, I can't go because of work. She works as a TV writer, and basically her show has just like gotten this great deal, and her best friend Seth are about to start producing their own show, and it's really great and exciting and all this kind of stuff. So she can't go to Omaha for Christmas. She has to work basically every day up until Christmas to make her TV show happen. And her husband Neil is just like, well, fine, you can stay here. The kids and I are going to Christmas, the kids deserve to get to see their grandparents, or their grandma, and we're gonna go. You stay here, and that's that. So he leaves, and Georgie is just kind of like, oh man, what do I do now? And her mom, Georgie's mom, is completely convinced that Neil has left her and they're going to get divorced and their whole marriage is just ending, and it's just kind of a mess. So you really follow Georgie and her struggle to figure out, okay, what do I do next? She starts staying at her mom's house for a while. I mean, she still can go to her house, but her mom's house is closer to where she works. So she starts staying there for a little bit, and she tries to call Neil one night and pulls out her old landline phone. A rotary phone, you gotta spin all the numbers and everything. She pulls that out of her closet, and when she calls Neil, she realizes that there's something a little bit off, but, whatever, it's fine. Calls him again the next night. I must be going crazy, she thinks to herself, because this Neil sounds like the Neil from years and years and years ago when we were still like early in our relationship, before we were married, before we were even engaged. Like, what the heck? I think he's in 1988. I think that's when Neil's in. I can't remember. But basically, she's sitting there and she's talking to her husband before he was actually her husband. And it's really kind of cool to see how different that Neil is from her current Neil, and how different she was back then. She realizes, like, oh wow, like, I wasn't always like this, you know? It's really interesting. And she kind of fights for her past relationship in hopes that it doesn't mess anything up in the future. Because during this week leading up to Christmas in 1988 was the week that they did not talk. Neil had left, he was angry, and back in 1988, Georgie did not hear from him at all. So now, in her present time, the year 2013, she's sitting here talking to her husband from the past in 1988. And you're just like, what the heck is going on? This is crazy. She thinks she's gone insane because Neil is saying all these things that happened back then, and she's just like, what the heck? Like, how does this even happen? So something else I really liked about this book is that you keep up with all the days, because every now and then it'll say something like this. So Saturday, December 21st, 2013. And it does that throughout the entire book. It might say it right before a chapter, or you might have a couple chapters that take place within that day. You know, the days change all the way until Christmas Day. So you kind of just follow Georgie as she's basically piecing her marriage back together before her marriage even started. It's really kind of confusing to explain, I guess, but when you read it, it makes so much sense. I think that Rainbow Rowell did an incredible job explaining the differences between the past and the present that are going on, because I think that's really kind of hard to do, to have a book take place at two different times and have the same character be so drastically different in each time period. So I think she did a really great job in explaining that and showing that to the reader. I think it's one of the things that I really loved about the book. I loved that you got to see past Neil and learn more about Georgie's life before she was married and why maybe she made some of the decisions that she did. Because sometimes her decisions, you don't necessarily agree with them. You're like, well, that was kind of dumb. Why wouldn't you just do this? Why wouldn't you just agree with it? Why wouldn't you just go along with it? So I really liked that you kind of got an insight into her past and into Neil's past. I thought it made the book really great and just super fun and interesting to read. I wouldn't say that this one was quite as quirky as Attachments. I think it was more, I guess if I had to categorize it, maybe like romantic comedy kind of thing, because it is funny. Like, I thought it was a really funny book. It was just interesting. But as far as quirkiness goes, I don't think I would say it's quite that quirky. But I did love it, and I would definitely recommend it for you guys. It's super awesome. They're both, I think, young adult fiction, not necessarily like teen fiction. But they're really great, and I'm super excited that I finally read something by Rainbow Rowell, because I've heard so many great things about her, and I've been dying to read something by her for I don't even know how long. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on those two books. Have any of you guys read these two or read any other Rainbow Rowell books? If you have, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear you guys' opinions. Alright guys, well, I will see you next time, and make sure to give my video a thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye!